Hi, my name is Elle Billing. I am a chronically ill queer femme, and I'm tired. I'm here this episode and every episode to dig at the roots of our collective fatigue, explore ways to direct our care in compassionate and sustainable ways, and harness creative expression to heal ourselves and our world. And welcome to HORF, Radical Care in a Late Capitalist Techscape. My guest today is Kim Hopson. Kim Hopson is a multidisciplinary artist based in Brooklyn, New York. In her work, she explores themes of physical limitation, otherness, and ableist bias in society. Experiencing life with a disability has given her a unique viewpoint that is reflected in her paintings, drawings, and collages. She focuses on the body's relationship to the world, both physically and emotionally. Motherhood has made that difference a more central part of her art, and her work has expanded to examine those experiences in the context of parenthood. Her artwork comes from a place of physical and emotional frustration. Her intention is to create dialogue around these topics in order to spark a larger conversation. I'm really excited to have Kim on the podcast today. Hello, Kim. Welcome to HORF.
Hello.
Hello.
So hi.
Here.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. We've talked before on the record during Disability Pride Month, so I'm excited to have another conversation with you where we can talk more in depth about some of the things we touched on then. So I'll just start with the question I ask all my guests, which is, how have you received care this week?
Yeah, so that's a very loaded question for me.
I think it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, I feel like I have to kind of preface this. So I have a disability. I am limb different and missing my left arm, born missing my left arm. I also have two small children. I have a almost 2-year-old and an almost 4-year-old. And this week, my husband is out of town. He's in London. And right before he left, I definitely had a panic attack. I haven't had a panic attack in a long time, actually, but I lost my shit. And so,
as one tends to,
I have learned through lots of therapy and self-care and being present. And I have learned to be kind to myself. And so when I had my panic attack about how am I going to get the kids from A to B, I have to get all this gear downstairs, and then like my almost 2-year-old, getting him down the stairs. I have to hold on to him or I have to carry him, but I have one hand, so I can't hold the banister. So like I fear falling. And then my 4-year-old, it's like the stroller and the scooter. I live in New York, and so the streets are crazy, and both of my kids they're okay at dealing with traffic, but they're 2 and 4, so
they're little.
And I have one hand. And so like trying to hold on to them, like in an ideal situation, physically it's hard. And then on top of that, you have like toddler moods, and tantrums. Anyway, so that's all what's going through my head when my husband said he had to go on a business trip. And I kind of did that thing where I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm their mother. I've got this, And then the more and more that I processed it, I was like, fuck, and so
I don't got this. I don't got this.
Yeah. And so I had all these racing thoughts. It's like textbook panic attack. I had to put my head in between my, like to my knees and like try to breathe through it. I was able to talk through it with my husband, and we talked through like all of the things that were stressing me out. He's been gone basically a week, and I was able to get a babysitter to come in and help me for 2 of those days. It's still not ideal, but it basically helped my sanity. So I feel very, very grateful that I was able to do that financially. But yeah, so that kind of, that was basically my self-care was admitting I need help and being able to get that help. But it's so hard for me to both handle my anxiety, but also to ask for help. It's a really hard thing. And I think as a person with a disability, I just get really sick of having to ask people help, but it is the nature of the beast. It's also it comes up a lot in what not only what I struggle with, but also what my artwork is about. So anyway, that's that was my self-care. Yeah.
Yeah, hiring a babysitter, I mean, seems so, I'm not trying to downplay it. Like, it seems like such a basic step, right? But like getting to that point and being able to say, okay, this is how I need help. This is going to help me. Because the cognitive load of parenting on its own, and especially, I mean, traditionally mothers have more of the cognitive load, the household management side of things. And especially with your husband gone, you were going to be managing everything. Plus the cognitive load that you run in your head of navigating with one hand, with one arm, that just seems really like a huge mental load. And being able to like offload some of that to another person, that really is a big deal. Like hiring a babysitter ends up being not a basic thing. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, and I see all these other, you see, and this is what you shouldn't do. But I compare myself to other moms all the time. It's a really, really bad habit. I think we all do it.
Yeah. Able-bodied parents do it all the time. And
I see moms, I've got many mom friends here that will do play dates, and they roll up solo with 2 to 3 kids, and it's just them. And I feel like I struggle even with 1, definitely with 2. And then I feel like I have to justify why I'm struggling, and I shouldn't have to, but I do. And then I always beat myself up when I have to ask for help, because I always have to ask for help when I'm out with my kids, because both of my boys they're runners. There's no right way to say it. They run into traffic. They run all over the place. What made this particular stint of time hard with my husband being out of town is that 2 of the days they normally would have been in childcare, it was a holiday, or is a holiday. Was it Rosh Hashanah, a Jewish holiday?
Yep.
Yeah. So schools were closed here in New York. And so I had a full weekend alone with them. And then I had 2 full work days alone with them. And then now they're back in school yesterday and today. It's just a lot, like there's a lot of stuff. Not only the caregiving aspect, but also the day-to-day grind of also trying to go to the restroom myself, trying to feed myself, trying to well,
and we live in a culture that praises and lifts up this ideal of rugged individuality, which even for the most so-called able person on their best day is unattainable.
Right.
And then for people like us who are sick or disabled, like we're never going to get there.
Right.
As much as the people around us want us to, because our disability makes them uncomfortable.
Right. And I think that's it's hard to ask for help, because you see that sense of pity. And I'm like, it's not pity that I want. I just want
help.
I just want help.
Just help me.
Can I have the help without the other baggage that comes along with that help? That would be really great. And then sometimes what really pisses me off is I've had people in the past be like, that's the pride, that you don't want to ask. And I'm like, no, as an able-bodied person, you've never had to depend on the kindness of others, which I have to depend on all the time the minute I leave my front door with my children. It fucking sucks. It's an awful feeling. For instance, on this weekend, on Saturday, I took the kids to the zoo. Luckily, I went with like a play date, a group of other parents. I didn't know a lot of them very well. And it's like the worst scenario for me, because I'm like, oh, great, these rando parents, and they're probably going to have to help me with my kids. Guess what? They did. And I just kind of was like, sometimes you're just like, all right, this is uncomfortable, but I'm just going to do it. And so like my 2-year-old wanted to get out of the stroller. He was just off the minute I got him out of the stroller. But it's because I have one hand, I couldn't push the stroller and hold his hand and also keep track of my 4-year-old, which was also running to try to get into a fucking, there's like this little enclave that had ducks. But he was like trying to scale it. Anyway, so.
My niece also likes to chase ducks. So I get it.
Yeah. So.
It's funny now, but it wasn't funny at the time.
I mean, I'll tease them about it. I'm going to tease them about everything when they're teenagers and adults. But, I also I very much do not want my children to miss out on opportunities because I do not feel comfortable taking them places. So I just feel like it's this giant, that's where I get all these racing thoughts and my anxiety comes in, because I'm thinking of worst case scenario, every possible thing that could possibly happen with the baby gear and the kids and them dying.
Yeah, you're always straight to dying. Yep.
Yeah. In relation to who could possibly be in the vicinity that could also be an extra hand for me.
Right.
And I kind of balance that with, is it worth doing this? And that's kind of my assessment for mom life / caregiving when I'm solo. And so I do rely on my partner a lot more than I probably an able-bodied parent, which sucks. But also my husband's he's pretty awesome, and we've had a lot of talks about it. And he's a really hands-on parent anyway, but also like he has to be, because you're with someone who has a disability, so you get to be you have to step up.
I think ideally, I mean, if we lived in a perfect world, our partners and co-parents would be people we could depend on all the time anyway.
Yeah.
Or at least most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be expected that we could depend on them and co-parent like a well-meshed team. I mean, one of my pet peeves is when moms say, "Oh yeah, my husband's babysitting." No, he's parenting.
Right.
Like, he's not babysitting. You don't babysit your own kids. You you parent them.
Right. Right. Well, and because my husband is he's a really great dad, and he's had to be more hands-on, literally, and also he just wants to be, right?
Right.
But I do find it interesting that he has a lot of colleagues, and a lot of my own parents are always like, "Oh my God, Robin's so amazing," and he's just he's just in there with them, and he's doing this and doing that. No one says that about me.
The bar is set pretty low for dads in this country. Yeah.
And I don't want to diminish his greatness, but it also, I'm like, he's just being a good parent. But yeah, back to care and mental health.
Oh yeah.
I think when it comes to like my racing thoughts and stuff, I try to just remind myself that as long as I'm healthy, the kids are healthy, we're all alive, we're all okay. Just breathe and get through every moment, because there's so many stressors when you're caregiving. They don't want to do what you want them to do, and they will never do it the way that you want them to do it. It's going to take like 10 minutes to put on shoes. I can't tie. I also, when I put shoes on my toddlers, I have to like basically put their foot and the shoe in my left armpit, because I don't have another hand to hold their foot. And so, I mean, there's certain like clothes and shoes already that I'm like, usually daddy does that. Everything takes longer with small children, but it takes even longer when you have one hand and two small children.
Well, on the topic of clothes, since I've seen your artwork, and I know you deal a lot with your particular limb difference and disability in your artwork, I know you dread fall and winter because of zippers and sweaters and scarves, coats and everything. You recently completed a collection called Sweater Weather. I'm interested in how you use your creative practice, your art practice, to dig into some of these issues that you face.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So I just completed a series called Sweater Weather. What it came from originally is, so when we first moved here to New York, we've been here now a year. So we moved around this time last year, and it started getting cold. And so I'm originally from Texas, and we moved from Texas. And in Texas, you have like one jacket, like one sweater. Like you really don't need, because it's like tropical. Technically, it's like tropical weather. So like things like blow in and blow out and blow in and blow out. And so it may get really cold for like a week, but it always goes away. I am just kind of used to like, okay, I have like my one thing that has a zipper. It's a bit annoying, but whatever. Well, being here and the snow and the sleet and all of the cold, and walking my children to daycare at the time, in that cold, you have to bundle them up. So you have to like bundle them in their coats and their jackets and their hats and their mittens and their scarves and their snowshoes. Everything is hard to put on their little tiny bodies. They're tiny, wiggly little bodies. right? It's hard for me to put it on myself. Like little gloves and mittens are really hard with one hand to put on someone else's hand. The big snow boots are really hard to put on. I thought in my head, when you think of sweater weather, right? You think of cozy by the hearth side with your pumpkin spice latte.
Yep.
My basic bitch ass loves that shit, right? So I love the idea of walking down a cool street with like my latte and like in my cute jacket and my sweater and everything is really cute, and my beautifully dressed children in their knitwear, and we're all just, it's like a J. Crew ad or something, right?
Oh, just very New York. Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen. That's what my Instagram dream, whatever.
Parenthood is rarely Instagrammable. I have learned through my parent friends.
It's all poop and violence, really. But that's what I thought it was going to be. And then we moved here, and instead it was just a shit show of me struggling to get my kids in their winter gear, get them to school. There were a couple of times when I was walking my oldest to school and his mittens would like fall off and I couldn't get them back on him. And he was just screaming at me, mommy, why can't you do this? Daddy can do it. Like, it's like a knife to the heart, like it was. And then I would get so upset. I would just be like, my tears would be running down my face, but it was cold. So they'd be like freezing on my face. And like and then my son, because he was just going through a lot because we had just moved. So a lot of this was him acting out because he didn't want to be here. Right. But I remember him sitting on one of these like brownstone steps and just being so angry that I couldn't put these things on him. And I was so angry at him, but also more angry at myself. I just felt very defeatist and very hard. And I was thinking like, why, like no one knows how this feels. No one knows like how heartbreaking this feels as a parent, as a person, that I cannot do this for my child. It sounds so simple, like they're fucking mittens, but it's so much more than that. And then so that's kind of where the idea came from. So I started drawing all of these little figures, and like they just started out as little pencil drawings. And it was really just a way for me through these emotions. Like my artwork it's totally my catharsis. It's my therapy, my oasis. It's how I get through these hard feelings, these hard emotions about having a disability and having to do like navigate this. Right. Mm-hmm. So started off with all these little pencil drawings of just like figures being bundled, but it's a claustrophobic feeling, like you're being suffocated. And then it's moved on to collages and now paintings. I also have another story of once again, my older son was on a slide at the park near our apartment, and it was iced over. There was snow everywhere. It was beautiful, but he went down a slide way too fast because it was frozen, right? Mm-hmm. So he fell onto a snow bank. He just like shot out of this slide. I think he really scared himself, scared me too. He landed on some ice and he started screaming, and I thought that maybe he broke something or like something, like he was screaming. And because I was bundled in all of my winter gear and I had my mitten on, like I couldn't get a grip of his bundled body. So I had my bundled body and his bundled body. And so I hoisted him. I couldn't really pick him up because I couldn't grab hold. And because my little arm was in a sleeve, and I mean, I use my arm all the time. It's not just like this like derelict limb that just hangs on my body. Like I use it to pick up things all the time. But I couldn't get under his little armpit to like lift him up because of the giant coat that I was wearing. So basically I was like struggling to get his body on my body. I ended up like throwing him on my back, almost like a little backpack kid. And he's screaming, and I'm hobbling to our apartment in the snow, and he's just screaming. But like, it was almost like this weird, like I felt like Quasimodo because I'm just like hobbling, and it was awful because I could barely carry him. Anyway, I got him back to the apartment. He was fine. He just was scared. But that started actually my first painting from the series, Sweater Weather, it's called The Climb, and it's an illustration of that experience. And so that's kind of how the series started out. And now it's finished.
So you've talked quite a bit already about parenting with a limb difference. But when your oldest was born, what did you have a lot of support? Or was it a lot like what you're talking about, where you just felt like you couldn't ask for help and you were
more like that. So
you were still in Texas then, right?
I was still in Texas. So I had family around because, I mean, there's the whole cheesy saying, village. It's true. It really does take a village to raise children in a way where you feel like you're not treading water. I think you still feel like you're treading water when your children are young. I didn't quite realize how much until having two small ones, 2 years apart. I did have support from friends and family. I think what was hard, so with my first son, I had postpartum depression. I was very stubborn. I refused to admit that I had it. I really just thought that having a baby was awful. I don't know. I mean, I was so, and still, but I was so in love with my son when he was born. So it wasn't the kind of postpartum depression. I mean, there's so many different layers. Everyone is different.
Yeah, it really does manifest differently for everybody. But
for me, it manifested in really high anxiety. I mean, there were also depressive, at a certain point, I did feel very hopeless about what am I going to do, But overall, it was an isolating feeling of, I felt right away, like I didn't know how to hold him with one hand. Like, it sounds silly, like diapering was crazy, and breastfeeding, I got mastitis pretty early on after bringing him home from the hospital. And I had a lactation consult. Like, the thing is, I set myself up for success. I read all the mommy blogs. I have a lot of friends who already had children. I asked them all the questions. I bought all the things that people suggested. I did all the research, but I still struggled so much. And I think so much of that was no matter how many articles I read, no matter having a great lactation consultant, I still was holding my baby wrong because I have a different angle. Trying to figure out how to breastfeed with one hand was really freaking hard. And there's not another limb different lactation consultant or mother that could have been like, hey, I too have one arm. Here's how I did it. And I think that was a lot of my problem, is that I had a village, but I didn't have a limb different village. And I didn't realize how hard that was. I never had anyone be rude or mean to me. But even going to these mommy meetup groups, my whole life I've had people prejudge me, and I'm used to it. But something about it in the context of mommy groups scared the ever living shit out of me, because I'd had girls growing up not be very nice to me just because I had one arm, and and I've always been like, whatever, fuck them. But when you're so fragile and you are so desperate for connection
and validation.
And I felt like, because I needed so much help right away and I was not comfortable asking it, I just felt like I just didn't go to stuff. And because I didn't go to anything, that isolation crept in. And that's really what grabbed hold of my postpartum depression. I think that if I hadn't been so self-isolating, that I probably would have gotten help faster. I would have been more aware and talked through a lot of stuff, but I just let it fester. And I didn't really want anyone's help because I just didn't know how to navigate being a parent. And so much of that had to do with my disability.
Most of your parenting journey has been during the pandemic. Your youngest, was he born before COVID?
No, He is a COVID baby.
He's a COVID baby.
We found out that I was pregnant with him in February of 2020. I remember going to a Walgreens in Austin, driving to a Walgreens, and on the radio they were talking about COVID, but it was just something in China. I remember it being it was like an NPR. I was listening to NPR, and they were just like, oh, in China, this is happening, and people are freaking out, but it's being contained. And that was the day I found out I was pregnant. By the time I went to my first gyno visit for my ultrasound, we were already wearing masks, and Austin had already shut down. Yeah, I mean, it was really, really scary and isolating. I did not leave my house. I mean, I did not leave my house except to like go walk around the neighborhood for a year. I mean, unless it was a doctor's appointment. And all of my doctor's appointments were, my gyno office was, they did curbside appointments for pregnant women, which was interesting.
Do they attach? I'm like, what do we do with the stirrups?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I mean, it was mostly just like checking for the heartbeat. Yeah, it wasn't like.
No, I get it. But like, my first thought was, interesting.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, and in fact, I think that went viral. Like, there was a picture. Someone posted a picture of the curbside setup that they had outside of the office. We're like, what? But I mean, they had to. You know, I'm sure that there were other areas, like other offices around the country and world.
Yeah. You already touched on how isolated you felt after your oldest was born, and then you add this. It's like an onion layer of isolation that you're adding with the pandemic, and then moving to New York where you don't know anybody. So, like, did that have a further impact on your mental health? Like your second being born during the pandemic, and then moving to New York, where to a whole new place away from your family, because like American style parenting is very siloed and isolated. Or were you kind of, did it go better when your second one? I'm like, what's my question here? Did it go better when your youngest was born?
So it was better because I didn't have postpartum depression with my second. I think it's because I was in therapy. Like I started therapy when my first son was 8 months. So the first 8 months were really rough, but then once I started therapy and I started addressing a lot of things got really dramatically better, because I definitely would not have wanted to have another baby until I was better, right? I stayed in therapy. I just went virtual for the entirety of my second pregnancy, birth, basically until I moved to New York. I was in therapy. So that was really great. I think that once COVID happened, and everyone in the world, really, our relationships went online. So actually, it really helped me with this transition to New York, because I still have most of the ways in which I communicate and find connection hasn't actually changed that much. What's been wild is meeting people in person now. When it comes to connection and feeling like I have support, I definitely felt it a lot more the second time. But I think a lot of it is because I was more of an advocate. I advocated for myself. I told people what I needed and what I was struggling with. And that was the key, really.
It makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
So Brooklyn, you've been there like a year now. Like, in what ways does Brooklyn create barriers to access? I don't like to think of our disabilities as being the barrier, because disability is normal. Like 20 to 25% of the population is or will become disabled at some point in their life. It's like the one minority group that you can join like in an instant. So it's normal. It's very normal, but it's like the culture we live in that is the barrier. So in what ways does Brooklyn create barriers to access?
I mean, I think it's just accessibility. It's just, accessibility is such a huge issue, and it's going to sound very negative, but the world is not going to cater to the disabled. It would be amazing.
Oh, I wish
it did.
Universal design would be wonderful.
Right. Universal design is the goal, is the dream, is the goal, is the aim, right? But I really thought New York was going to be better than it is. On Saturday, when I took my children to the zoo, right, they did not have an accessible entrance. So luckily I was with other people at the zoo. So luckily I had other parents, and this other parent, and thank God I'm in shape. I'm not even really in shape, but like I was able to lift my stroller from one side, and he lifted it from another dad. He lifted it from the other side, and I was able to carry my youngest, who is still in the stroller, down 4 flights of stairs. And I remember, and I went up.
What do wheelchair users do?
I guess, I don't know. I mean, there are other entrances to the zoo, but I would think that you would want all of them to be accessible, not just, I guess
so
maybe
like,
one.
It's one of those situations where like wheelchair users use the back entrance.
I guess so. Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
or go to the side. We don't want to look at you. You're kind of an afterthought.
Well, and once again, just goes to show, like, do you understand the amount of preparation that it takes for me
planning, thinking,
researching?
Yep.
And so that, these, like, there's a reason why I get racing thoughts, because I have to think about shit that other people don't have the luxury of not having to think about.
Yep.
And
that's why we're so tired all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I don't leave the house with my children. I mean, that's not true, but I find my safe spaces and then that's where I go. Like once I find an accessible public space, you bet your ass I never forget it. And that is where I go.
That's like me in restaurants. Once I find a restaurant that has one thing I can eat, that's the restaurant I go to every time I'm in town. Like it was better in Idaho because I lived in the city. It wasn't a big city, but like I knew like at every preferred restaurant, I had like one thing I could eat. Well, now we live an hour out of Fargo. Like there's nothing around here I can eat if we go out. We have to drive an hour to get into the city. And then none of my favorite restaurants are there because I moved. So it's just been this slow exploration of finding like, where can I get a sandwich when I'm in town for a doctor's appointment? Because it's an hour there and an hour home. And like, I have to eat. Like I can't not eat. But if I eat the wrong thing, I'll end up needing my EpiPen or in a full fibromyalgia flare. Like if I eat potatoes, I end up in like a full flare. Yesterday, I ate what I thought were safe, gluten-free stuffed pretzels. And it turned out that one of the gluten-free flours that's gaining in popularity is latex adjacent.
What?
And I have cassava flour. Is latex adjacent, and it was not a good night for me.
Oh no.
So, and like, but I was home when it happened. So then it's like, okay, well, do I use my EpiPen and call 911 and wait for the rural first responders to come? Or do I just like try to manage this on my, like, it was, the whole thing was like, that's just me going out to eat every time.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and like this stuff does sneak up on you. So I will do my research, right? There have been a couple of times where I've taken the kids into Manhattan and braved the subways. Now, supposedly, the subways are supposed to be completely accessible by 2025. I hope that will happen, but I also, at the same time, am very skeptical because they are so not accessible right now. And I think one thing I do think is very interesting, I'd love to hear other parents' feedback on this. I don't think people understand how valuable a ramp or an elevator is until you have a baby and you have a stroller. And in my case, because I have one hand, I can't even pick up my stroller. Because I see this a lot in Manhattan, is a lot of parents will have their babies in these, I forgot what the brand is, but it's like it's a baby carrier that has like a little push thing. So it turns into like kind of like a quasi like foldable stroller, but it doesn't like have anything to carry anything at the bottom of the stroller. So it's really like a bare bones, but it's light enough where I see a lot of parents, they will just like pick up the whole thing to walk down the stairs at a subway stop. Obviously, I can't do that.
Right.
So it seems like that's how even if you have a baby and you have a stroller, you can get around the inaccessibility of the New York Transit. I'm still fucked. I'm sorry. I keep saying.
I will put a little note that says this episode contains swears.
Yeah, I apologize. There have been quite a few times where I have had to use public transit system and it says this is an accessible stop, but the elevator's broken, and I'm like, well, that doesn't really help me. And so you're still having to like reroute yourself. It's a lot. And then even on top, if you have access to the elevator or the ramp, you still have to navigate other people
who aren't aware of accessibility needs and the people around them.
Right. And then once you even get in, like once I even get the kids into Manhattan, like I took Uther into Central Park. Central Park is not completely accessible, by the way. There's stairs everywhere, and they don't tell you where the areas are that don't have stairs. So once again, I had a friend with me that was able to help me carry stroller up a bunch of flights of stairs. But it's just exhausting. At a certain point, you're just like, this, I don't even know what to do. Like, I do not, if you were in a wheelchair, I do not know how you would navigate the city.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the state of infrastructure in most of the country is, I mean, we've had ADA for 30 years now. So any buildings built before that, accessibility is like an add-on. A lot of it hasn't been maintained. My partner has a degree in interior design, which is sort of like architecture without the lab work. And so is like a huge, like just architecture geek. And their frustration is like ugly accessibility, because there are ways to make accessibility part of the aesthetic of a building. And most places don't do that. But like at the Mayo, there's buildings at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, for example, where like the accessibility is like part of the design and it's well made and beautiful. Like it doesn't have to suck. Like our accessibility doesn't have to suck this bad. Like it can be thoughtful and beautiful and well designed and well maintained and universally accessible to everybody.
It doesn't have to be an afterthought. I feel like I should for the people in the back, it doesn't have to be, because it always is an afterthought. Or 2 examples, because I'm just going hard on the accessibility, because it really is freedom. And that is how you get physical connection to your community, is being able to attend things, you know? And
universal design means like you start with the end in mind, like of everybody being able to attend. And then like, okay, if we want people who are neurodiverse, who are wheelchair users, who are limb different, who, you know, have other accessibility needs, if we want all of these people to be able to access this space, then we need to build it that way from the beginning and like plan backwards from that.
And I get that like New York has architecturally, like there's a lot of old buildings that are already the way they are. Right. And so you have to figure it out. And so I do get that. Okay. But for instance, my kid's pediatrician's office is not accessible. The entrance is like 2 staircases. There's no elevator. I ask them every time that I've had to take one of my sons in for their appointment and I have to get them up the stairs and stuff. I'm like, are you guys ever going to have an accessible entrance? And the microaggressions of me complaining, suddenly I become a Karen. That to me is one of the worst feelings, as well as people reacting to my complaint about accessibility. Because I'm not rude. I'm just asking, you know, is there an accessible entrance here? Or are you planning on having an accessible entrance? This has happened to me at museums. This has happened to me like public places where you have small children and that have advertised, bring your small children here. Like it's like they trick you. Like, this is a safe space, right?
Just
it's not
kidding.
a safe. Just kidding. You know, and I think that's what hurts so bad, is that it's unexpected. Or like they're getting public funding, so they should have accessible entrances. But the microaggressions of people saying, well, we get this complaint. If it's really that much of a problem, ... That's what I always get. And it just makes the rage that I have. And it's like cry raging, though. It's like the type where you're like, I'm crying, but I also want to throttle someone. And I wish it was like my life was like a sci-fi movie and I could rip someone's hand, put it on my chest and have them feel what the fuck they're making me feel. And them have to experience that. That's what I'm doing through my artwork, because that fucking sucks.
Yeah, that was not where I thought you were going with the sci-fi thing, but that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I really liked. There was this show. They've done a reset of it in the past couple of years, which is not as good. But I was obsessed with it as a teenager, called Roswell, and I loved it. And they had like these teenage aliens in New Mexico. Anyway, but they would do that. Like you could, like one of the aliens, his power was like he could touch you and then he could feel like what you were feeling. I wish I could make everyone have that power for like a minute. Like
basic human empathy is what.
Well, yeah,
I
mean,
basic empathy.
Yes, I want people to have empathy, and it's sad because I think that a lot of people don't care. Like accommodating people with disabilities, it's an afterthought. And I'm 38, I've experienced, I've had a disability my entire life, and I can tell you that it's an afterthought most of the time. And when it isn't, it does feel so amazing to have it be important, because it really does make you feel respected and seen.
And like,
it's really
people,
great.
Yeah, because you show up in a space where that is designed for you, or is designed with you in mind, and you get there and you're like, oh, someone sees me as a human, like a full human person, and they thought of me.
Yeah.
Yep. It's great when it works. Yep.
I've found different ways of coping emotionally. And I think that's what it is, like navigating the world with a disability. You have to find ways both physically to help yourself and those around you, and especially if you're a caregiver, like how to caregive while also navigating physically this, bridge that gap. And like I said, I don't want my children to miss out on experiences because of my limb difference. So I always try to push through as much as I can, but I also give myself grace about it because it's hard. And I actually think that emotionally combating the guilt and shame surrounding meeting people when having a physical disability. And as a parent, it's really hard. Like right now, like I have a meetup, like tomorrow, my son is having like his preschool class is having like their first little like meetup thing tomorrow with all the parents. And I've seen some of the parents, but I get nervous every single time that I have to go to some kind of parent thing because I'm the parent that has one arm. I don't know what people are thinking about me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't cross my mind.
Well, thank you very much for all of these thoughts. I have really enjoyed this conversation. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about down the road.
Yeah, for sure.
So where can people find you online?
My website is kimhopsonstudio.com. All my handles are Kim Hopson Studio. Great. So my Instagram, my Twitter, it's all Kim Hopson Studio. And then if you are in New York, the New York area, I have a solo show at a event space called Spoke the Hub here in Park Slope in January that I'm prepping for. And the opening for that is going to be January 8th.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful. And is that solo show, is that going to be your sweater weather pieces or something else? Awesome.
Yeah, it'll be sweater weather. Yep.
Oh, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have that show. It's my first time having a solo show. So I'm really, really excited and honored to be able to do that with that organization. So
great. And so that's in January. Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much for being with us today. And I look forward to maybe having you back again down the road.
Anytime you want to chat, Elle, I would love to chat with you. So this has been so great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of HOORF. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, or to get a full transcript of the episode, visit hoorfpodcast.com. That's HOORF podcast.com. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they're released. And if you're enjoying our podcast, I'd love to have you leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their podcasts, so even though it only takes you a few seconds, it really does make a difference for us. Become a patron. For $3 a month, you can support the creation of this podcast, pay my editor, and join a community of fellow caregivers out here just doing our best. Thank you again for joining me, Elle Billing, in this episode of HOORF. Until next time, be excellent to each other. HOORF is hosted by Elle Billing at Elle and Wink. Audio editing by Ricky Cummings at Ricky Poo. Music composed by Ricky Cummings. HOORF is a production of Elle and Wink Art Studio, all rights reserved. HOORF Podcast can be found on social media channels at HOORF Podcast, at HOORF Podcast.